Welcome to our channel, where stories come to life and time flies. Subscribe, like, and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Let me share a story. My name is Emma, and I work as a technician in a car service. I have been working in this field for 8 years. I live alone in a small rented apartment on the outskirts of Ashwood. It's a quiet neighborhood with wonderful neighbors. Everyone knows each other, and people greet you warmly when you cross paths at the door. I moved here just 6 months ago from another part of town. I love my job. The staff is wonderful, and in the summer, you can walk home in 15 minutes. There's something soothing about the simplicity of my routine, waking up to the sound of birds outside my window, drinking my morning coffee before heading to work, and ending the day with a quiet walk around the block. But not every day is predictable. Just last week, a neighbor's dog ran away, and it took me nearly an hour to help catch it. Moments like these, small and unexpected, bring variety to my otherwise stable life. This past summer was sweltering, the kind where the heat envelops you like a suffocating blanket. The asphalt glistened under the relentless sun, seeming like it could melt at any moment. The air conditioners hummed incessantly from every window, their hum a constant backdrop to the oppressive weather. On one particularly grueling day, my old Ford's transmission failed, leaving me stranded and adding to the frustration of a chaotic workday filled with demanding repairs and an unexpected visit from my boss. By the time I reached home, drenched in sweat, my clothes were uncomfortably tight, and my skin was clammy from the humidity. Each step seemed heavier than the last, and my head throbbed from the heat. All I could think of was a cold shower and the soothing blast of air conditioning, but even those small pleasures seemed distant as the sweltering day wore on. As I walked past the neighboring houses, I admired the manicured yards and brightly colored flower beds. One garden caught my eye, huge pink roses unlike anything I'd seen before. The flowers seemed to glow in the golden evening light, their petals spreading like delicate silk. I slowed my step, marveling at their beauty and the faint fragrance wafting on the breeze. As I stood mesmerized, a low voice broke the silence. It came from a nearby path. Turning my head, I noticed a woman whose silhouette, framed by the warm glow of the setting sun, stood among the flowers. Her presence was almost as mesmerizing as the flowers themselves. She looked to be in her late 50s, but she radiated youthful energy as she stood in her driveway. She wore a light floral dress that swayed in the wind. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and her makeup was subtle but bright. She caught my gaze and smiled warmly. "Hi, I'm Laura," she said. "I live across the street. Could you help me with something?" Laura explained that she was renovating her house and needed help moving an old, heavy cabinet from the garage. It was a family heirloom, inherited from her grandmother, and it was almost half a century old. Her husband was away for work, and her son was studying out of state. How could I say no? She gestured to a cabinet whose ornate carvings were catching the last rays of sunlight. "It's been standing here for years," she said wistfully. "It's time to start again." The cabinet was massive, and even the two of us had trouble moving it. When we did manage to move it, I was covered in sweat, and my t-shirt was sticking to my back. Laura fussed around me, expressing her gratitude. When she offered me money, I waved it away. "You're my neighbor, I'm happy to help," I said, trying to catch my breath. "At least let me buy you something cold," she insisted. "You deserve it." Reluctantly, I agreed. Her house was stunning, spacious, bright, with high ceilings and a modern aesthetic. The scent of jasmine wafted in the air, mingling with a faint hint of lavender. The walls were decorated with family photos capturing joyous moments, weddings, celebrations, and laughter. We settled into her kitchen, where she poured chilled wine into crystal glasses and offered me cheese and crackers. As we talked, I learned that Laura was a high school literature teacher. She was smart, articulate, and had a keen sense of humor. Her eyes sparkled as she told stories about her students' antics, and her voice was lively and warm. Time seemed to slip away as we chatted about books, life, and everything in between. I shared stories from the repair shop, and she laughed heartily at my tales of eccentric customers. Before I knew it, the sun had set, and the wine was gone. A light breeze blew in through the open window, bringing the distant sounds of crickets and faint music. Laura stood up to refill our glasses, and as she passed, her hand lightly touched my shoulder. A shiver ran through me, and I turned to look at her. Her gaze was intense, and her presence was magnetic. My heart raced, and the air between us grew thick with unspoken tension. "You're so kind," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. The sight of her sent a shiver down my spine. My mouth was dry despite the wine, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. Her movements were slow and deliberate as she leaned closer, and the faint scent of her perfume enveloped me. I don't remember how it started, but I remember the heat, the urgency, the taste of sweet wine on her lips. My dress slipped to the floor and her hands moved expertly, as if knowing exactly what I needed. The buttons on my shirt came undone, and we collapsed onto the kitchen table, surrounded by the remains of wine and scattered cherries. The only sounds were our nervous laughter, our breathing, and the pounding of my heart as the summer night embraced us in its sultry silence. We sat in silence after that, and the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the room. Laura's head rested on my shoulder, and I looked out the window at the darkened garden, where roses swayed gently in the wind. It was a moment frozen in time, a memory deeply embedded in the fabric of my summer.